Yeah, he used to work this job specifically, so I like that guy.
He was
my boss for a little bit. Okay, so I want to ask you guys to do something before we actually do the lesson. Over there's paper and pencils and markers and crayons and all kinds of stuff, and an envelope. So I want you guys to either write a letter or draw a picture or write a poem or something to your mom for Mother's Day. So just go over there, grab the stuff, and then you can sit down and do it during lesson. You can do it after lesson, whatever you guys want. But I just want you guys to have something to give your mom for Mother's Day. Sometimes it's easy to forget that moms do so much for us, right? So when you're there, think about all the things that your mom does for you, right? Like she feeds you, she takes you places, she does all this stuff. Try and tell her that in that letter, because that means so much to moms, because they don't get thanked very often, right? They just do things constantly and just don't ever expect to be told thank you for it. So kind of think about that as we're doing the lesson. You don't have to like immediately pump out a letter. Like you can take your time with it. You can draw a picture. I saw one of your sisters, I still can't tell them apart most of the time, drawing pictures. You can do that? Cheyenne?
Yeah,
Okay.
we'll show you.
Yeah.
I don't know how I can't tell them apart unless they're speaking. Like that's, I don't, it doesn't. Well, yeah, I know that, but she was facing this thing, so I was like, I couldn't tell.
Yeah, that will show you.
But she was good. She was doing Starry Night from memory. It's too much for me. It's too much. Okay, so we're doing week 2 of the sequel. This shouldn't be too far of a jump because we stay on the same series, we just do the lessons a little bit differently. So they're on the sequel too. You guys were you there last week? Yeah, so what I talked about was Star Wars and how if you have a bad sequel, you just add more lightsabers, right? So what else did we talk about last week? Sienna, do you remember, Campbell? My big thing was, it's up to you to put the plans in place to have a good sequel, right? So you're moving forward in life and you get to make the decision how you're gonna do that, right? So you wanna put the plans in place and you wanna be better, right? So we're gonna continue to talk about the change in our lives, but we're gonna focus on emotions today. If you guys want a fun fact, between Danny and I, Danny's my fiance back there, I am definitely the crier, she is not. So if we're like watching a movie, I'll just be like sitting there silently crying and trying to hold her hand, and she's just trying to get away from me. She loves it. So how many of you guys, be honest, how many of you guys have cried during a movie? I was a couple weeks ago with Jacob when he cried during a movie. It's pretty solid.
Yep.
Yeah? Yeah. Danny said I'm not allowed to take her to dog movies because she'll just cry the whole time. She cried during the Dog's Purpose sequel
So you
trailer.
mean like a dog's way home?
Yeah, like cried during a trailer for a movie. That was Danny. How many of you guys have gotten mad during a game? Got mad during a video game or a sports game? So I used to be really bad about that. I would throw controllers and stuff. I was awful about it. So I've got this thing now where I just quit and I just sit there for a second. I have to zone in. But I was playing Forza and I'm trying to slow down and take these turns. And then people would just ram me right from behind into the wall. So every time I'm trying to drive nice, I just get nailed. And I got so frustrated I just turned my Xbox off. I'm breathe. Lord save me. Right?
When I broke that, it was on a video game that I got so mad that I literally broke. I kept hitting my head on the screen.
Yeah, you crack the screen, right? Yeah. You get insane sometimes, right? Okay, let's go other direction. How many of you guys have ever just been bored during school? If anybody doesn't raise their hand, you're lying. Everybody gets bored during school. how about just being excited? You guys saw me talking about Avengers for like the years coming up to it, right? I get so excited. Danny just went and saw Detective Pikachu with me, and she had to deal with me constantly slapping her on the arm and just grabbing her hand in the movie because I was so excited.
Was it
right?
good? Was it really
No,
good?
it was so good.
I'll
It
see
was
it.
amazing. Like if you guys like Pokemon, you'll love it. If you don't like Pokemon, it's still a pretty good movie.
So even if you don't even know
Yeah.
Charizard from,
Well, did you ever see the movie that came out, the Pokemon first movie, like
I saw
forever
that.
ago?
No.
Yeah?
Oh,
Yeah.
yeah.
So it like
My favorite
kind of
movie.
mentions that movie in there. So like you'll have an idea of what's going on if you've seen that, even if it's forever ago. So,
I want to watch it just because, what's his name plays Pikachu?
yeah, Ryan Reynolds.
Yeah.
Yeah, he kills it. He kills it. It's really funny. Like I loved the whole thing.
Cool.
So, I want you guys to know that emotions are totally normal because God created us to be emotional, right? Why do you think He made us that way? Like, why do you think He made us feel anger so much that we will break a computer screen? Or feel sadness so deeply that watching a trailer for a movie we can cry? Or feel so bored that I've literally seen kids eat paper because they have nothing else to do. Why do you think God made us that way? To have that huge range of emotions. Kind of, that's part of it. Anybody else? How did God create us? Go back all the way back to Genesis. What does it say about God creating us? Yes. So God created us in His image, right? God is emotional. So God wants us to be emotional because that's how we connect with Him, right? Who's ever seen like the Grand Canyon? When you walk up the first time you see it, like it like takes your breath away, right? Or like you guys ever just been like out in the woods and you just feel peaceful? That's an emotion too. And that's one of the ways, like that's the best way for me to like feel God, right? Is through those emotions of like peace and rest. See, I'm the opposite. I get scared when it blows. Because I grew up in Michigan, we had tornado drills, and I'm terrified of tornadoes. Terrified of them. Do you know how many tornadoes are in Arizona? I have been here for 15 years, and there was one tornado watch, which means they were waiting for one to touch down, and it never did. So I think I'm probably pretty safe. But I'm still terrified of it, right? The wind blows.
Dust devils.
And I'll sit there with my little 8-pound dog, just hold on to him. I'm scared.
You don't want to be transferred to Oz?
No, that sounds terrifying. Flying monkeys? No, thank you. Okay, let's go. We only have one verse today. Okay, so we're going to Hebrews. It says, "Therefore, since we have a great high priest who has ascended into heaven, Jesus, the Son of God, let us hold firmly to the faith we profess. For we do not have a high priest who is unable to empathize with our weaknesses." Let's stop there for a second. Why do you think he mentioned that? Do you think back in Jesus' time, or this is just a little bit after, do you think that the high priests that are sitting in the temple really understood what the people that were working out in the fields and trying to literally protect their livestock from wolves, do you think they could understand those feelings? No, they didn't experience any of that stuff, right? At least for the most part. They wouldn't understand why somebody was frustrated with some of these things because it just wouldn't click, right? Have you guys ever talked to somebody that comes from a completely different walk of life and you just don't understand like what's happening? Perfect example of that. I lived in Germany for a little while. One of my friends wanted to go on a date with a girl, right? So if you're a guy going on a date, you pay for the girl's meal, right? Not in Germany. The girl got mad because she took that as a sign that he thought she couldn't pay for herself. She got mad and didn't talk to him after that. Right? Because they didn't connect. They didn't understand one another. So that's kind of how he was thinking when you look at a high priest, when he says that. It's somebody from a completely different walk of life that probably isn't going to understand you. So he is not a high priest who is unable to empathize with our weaknesses. We have one who has been tempted in every way, just as we are, yet he did not sin. So, pretty common knowledge, Jesus was a better guy than we will ever be, right? Like, we're never going to reach that. As much as we try, we won't be as good as Jesus. It's impossible because Jesus was God, right? So let us then approach God's throne of grace with confidence, so that we may receive mercy and find grace to help us in our time of need, right? So, why do you think mercy and grace are important there?
Because we should look at
Yeah, we get both of them, but how are they given to us or do we earn them?
give it to us.
Yeah, right? We don't have to put in something to get those. Those are given to us no matter what. You can screw up 100 billion gazillion times, and still, God's going to have mercy on you, right? That's a huge thing to remember. Mercy and grace are never earned, they're given to us. So even if we make mistakes, like throwing a controller, we're forgiven for it, right? Even though you then have to go buy another controller for $55 because controllers are expensive.
We did that, and I also then broke it again.
Yep.
My
And
dad fixed it though.
see, I finally figured out how to fix controllers after I was done throwing them, so that didn't help me too much. But now, like, if I have one that's, I don't know, underneath my piano bench and I sit on it, I can fix this.
Feel good. Wait, you have piano?
Right? So, God is not separate from our emotions. And that's what a lot of people seem to think, right? You guys ever just, like, lost control because of your emotions? And it could be for a lot of reasons, right? So, God doesn't just know what those are, right? He hasn't just read it in a textbook. He doesn't go, yeah, well, because of this, then this. He knows those emotions because he's felt them. So anything you're feeling, God has also felt, right? You gotta think, when he died, he had all of our sins on his back. So when you feel guilty, know that God's already felt guilty for that sin. Right? When you feel angry, God's had more anger than that. Tenfold.
That's good.
Right?
Oh, I got a good story.
Have you guys ever flooded the world?
If you got a moment, no.
God did once because he was mad, right?
He was mad, yeah. But I was trying to live a Christian life, live a Christian example, and I was in the military at the time. And yeah, you know, you work on that. You try to do your best, put your best foot forward all the time. And you want people to see the best side of you, right? So here I am at the, what is this, the flight line where we had all our vehicles. And I'm driving one of those track vehicles, okay? You have to have like the proper amount of tension on the tracks in order for the track not to come off when you're driving it, because that would be bad. You don't want that to happen, okay? It's really bad if you're like in the mud trying to put the track back on. Yeah, no good. So anyway, I'm out there with my grease gun, and the way that you put the tension on the tracks is you put grease into this tensioner, and it fills up and pushes the track out, right? So that's all cool, right? I'm filling it up, but it wouldn't stay in. Every time I would fill it up, it would pop out. The grease would come back out. So it was like the fitting was bad. But instead of me like taking the fitting and going and getting a new one and putting it in, I decided what I would do is force all the grease in that I could, right? And I'm getting frustrated by this time. Forced all the grease in that I could, and of course the fitting is still broken. So when the grease gun pops off, all that grease, like, because now you've got this track that's like compressing this cylinder back, all the grease came flying back out and went all over me, okay? And so I just lost it. I mean, red flare, anger, just rah! And here I am, man of God, right? Chucking that grease gun as far down the flight line as I can. And of course, I'm right in front of the battalion headquarters when I do this. Okay? And I just completely lost it. And yeah, then at that moment you realize, oh, oops. Yeah, it's kind of late. You can't take it back at that point.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, so when you have those emotions and you lose control, that is when we feel like, oh, that's what disconnects us, right?
Yeah.
So a lot of times we blame those feelings for that, right?
I blame the grease gun or the fitting.
That's fair. So God understands that feeling, right? And he was just strong enough, because he's God, to usually not act on that,
Yeah.
right?
Jesus would not have chucked the grease gun.
Yeah. When's the one time that Jesus got really mad? You guys know?
When they had like merchants inside his father's temple.
Yeah, yeah. When they're selling stuff, basically they're like, hey, instead of going to church and giving your money to where they need it, we're just gonna sell you stuff right here in front. So what do you do?
Is that when he flipped the table?
Uh-huh. Yeah, he came over and he threw a table and yelled at everybody, right? Now, here's the question. Do you think he lost control in that time? I don't think so. I think he meant to do that. Because if he was just went up and was like, excuse me, I would really appreciate it if you could like take your dust and stuff. I know that you're trying to sell stuff and like feed your family and everything, but could you just take it and like move outside? What do you think they would have done?
He would have punched him.
I would have like laughed at him, right?
Yeah.
All right, guy, we don't know who you are. Yeah, so that righteous anger and that action, I bet they didn't come back, right? If someone came up to where you were selling stuff and threw your table, would you go back to that spot? No, right? So, we can have those breakdown moments and act irrationally, right? How do we get better at not doing that? What's the first thing we need to do?
Get more Jesus inside us.
We need to figure out what we're feeling, right?
Well, that too, yeah.
Right? If you don't know why you're angry, you can't fix why you're angry, right? You guys ever like seen somebody who's got like a cut that got infected? Do you think just putting a Band-Aid on would help? No? Rub some dirt in it, do you think that'll do it?
That'll make it worse.
No, you have to treat the infection, right? You have to give an antibiotic. You have to do something that's going to kill those bacteria. Otherwise, it's just going to get worse, right? So if you look at your problem and you go, well, I guess I'll just stash it for now. It's not going to fix it, right? It's going to end up getting worse. So I found this list that I thought was really interesting, that it's emotions that people feel they don't usually have a name for. So, there was one I really liked. How about, you guys know what denouement is? That's the feeling of bittersweetness that you've arrived in the future and you can't tell your past self about it. It's a very specific feeling, right? What about canopsia? That's the eerie feeling you get when you're somewhere that used to be full of people and now it's abandoned, right? It's like a ghost town. Right? These are very specific feelings. There's one that I found. Ooh, I know that Danny often experiences chrysalism, which is the tranquility of being inside if there's a storm outside. She always wants to watch a Harry Potter movie. If it's raining, I get a text. She want to watch Harry Potter. Every time. Right? She just really likes Harry Potter. I think I might have had a different list before, because the one I had before was a word called Mauerbauer Traurigkeit, which is a German word, which directly translates to the sadness of putting up walls, right? So it's a specific type of loneliness where you know there's people that are there to help you, and you refuse to accept that, right? So you're feeling lonely, and you know that there's people there, and you refuse to let them in. right? So if you can't pinpoint those emotions, it's hard to fix it, right? You don't need to know the word for what it means, but if you can say, hey, I feel really lonely, and I know that there's these people here, and I'm not letting them in, how do you fix it? Yeah, you let them in, right? Open the door. One of my friends showed me a picture recently of Jesus. It's just Jesus knocking at the door of your heart. It's a painting. And he's knocking on the door, and he pointed out something very specific about the door. There's no handle on the outside. So, Jesus is there. He's ready to come in and help. But you have to open the door, right? So I want you guys to know that it's important that we learn how to pinpoint our own feelings so we can get a hold of them, right? That doesn't always happen by yourself. So I don't want you guys to think, well, I'm just not good enough to figure this out. Because that's not true, okay? There's a lot of people in your life that are there and are happy to help you find those feelings. And there's even people who train specifically to help you find those feelings, right? So 20 years ago, somebody said, I have a therapist. People are just like, okay, crazy over here, right? Almost everybody I know now has a therapist. Why do you think that is? They literally go to school to say, here, I'm going to help you find out what you're feeling and how to get past it, right? I have never heard someone say, I went to therapy, I didn't do anything. Everybody goes in, even if they're thinking that, they come out better on the other side. They say, I figured this out. I had no idea that I was upset at my brother for so long because he trained the dog to bite me when I was little. Which actually did happen to me.
Nice brother.
He's not alive yet.
Yeah, he's a model now, it's fine. I laugh at him for that. So, finding those feelings, you can actually pinpoint the issue and you can fix it, right? So we go back to last week. What did I say at the very beginning of this lesson? What was our point last week? Go back to the first slide. What's the title of the lesson? Sequel. What is the sequel? The next part, right? So what are we supposed to do for our sequel? Prepare for it, right? Get ready. Grow as people. So this is the way that we grow emotionally as people, is we figure out our emotions, right? You look at it and you say, this is why I feel this. This is why I get excited when this happens. This is what I really love. And that helps you too. When you guys are going off to college, and you're trying to figure out what you want to do, I changed my major 7 times. Yeah. I started out as a business major. The day before classes, I started reading the books, and I said, I do not want to be a business major, and I went and returned. Right?
Yeah.
So taking that time and investing myself, I figured out what I wanted to do because I hadn't taken the time to do that before, right? So it took me a little while.
Yeah. Hey, I'd be interested to know how many people already know what they want to do when they grow up.
Yeah. I know Jacob does. Any of you guys? I didn't know what I wanted to do when I grew up until like yesterday, so.
I wanted to be, when I was little, I wanted to be an Indian when I grew up. Because we would play Cowboys and Indians all the time. And I wanted to be an Indian when I grew up.
That's-
And only later did I discover you have to be born an Indian. You can't
Yeah, that's
become an Indian.
like a native thing.
I want to be a stay-at-home dog mom.
Okay. By the way, since it's Mother's Day, Danny got me this shirt. So I'm wearing it because she got it for me because she's a dog mom, so.
Nice.
Happy Mother's Day.
Do you guys have any ideas, any like vague ideas? I wanted to be an archaeologist when I was younger.
Me too.
That was really cool.
That was another option, was archaeology.
You wanted to be a German teacher too.
I wanted to be a German teacher. I graduated college with a German language degree. And then I went to get my master's to do this, right? So, if you're ever at a point where you're like, oh no, I can't do this because I'm going to change the entire path of everything that I've done, just know that my dad he's turning 64 this year, right? So he wants to go get his master's because he wants to start like leading small groups and stuff. He's been a lawyer for like 20 years. That's his next step in life. He's already done all the schooling that he ever needs to. He can retire, be done, and not ever have to work with anybody ever again. He can go sit in his garage or sit on his back porch and use his binoculars to watch the animals up on the mountain. Right? No, he wants to go back to school. He wants to learn something to do more. So don't ever think this is going to change everything I can't. Okay? So when you learn your emotions, you'll find that there are things that you want to do that make you excited, right? You guys are moving, there's going to be a while before you're going to have to make that decision for what you want to do, but don't just make a logical decision. Believe me, I did not become a youth pastor for the money, right? A stand-alone translator gets paid $600 an hour. That was where I was going to go if German teaching didn't work out, right? That would be, I'd go with somebody, I'd travel around with them, free travel, and I'd sit there and I'd translate what they were saying into the language of the person that's speaking to them, right? That's good money. That would have been a logical decision. This was the emotional decision. If I would have made the logical decision in 10 years, I probably wouldn't be very happy. My dad tells me all the time, do not do things for the money. Do them because you like to do them, right? Because he took a job for the money. He doesn't like it. So he doesn't like going into work every day, but he still has to do it, right? That's why he wants to change. So if you learn your emotions, not only can you deal with things in a healthy way, you can find a path that's actually going to make you happy, right? So let's jump back a little bit and say, how do you deal with emotions in a not healthy way? How do you deal with sadness in an unhealthy way? If you're really upset, you're watching your favorite TV show, and your favorite character dies, right? Or if you're me, you're watching The Flash, and somebody dies every episode.
Shut up.
Right?
Gotta know-
What's the unhealthy way to deal with that?
Chuck the TV set out the window.
Yeah. Scream, throw a tantrum.
Falcon punch your TV.
Yeah, don't do that.
No, but do.
TVs are expensive.
Infinity
Right.
Punch TV.
Yeah, any kind of punch to the TV is a bad idea. But that's more anger. How would you deal with sadness in a bad way? Lock yourself in the bathroom, start bawling, eat a tub of ice cream, right? Those are not healthy ways to deal with your sadness. What would be a healthy way to do it? Pray, that's a good one.
Keep watching this TV comes back to life.
I mean, if it's a DC show, yeah.
Just cry and talk to someone about it.
Yeah, yeah, get some silent tears,
Call your mom.
right? Yeah. Or, have you seen this episode? Because I need to talk about it. Turn it on right now, right? When The Walking Dead was like a big, right? Season 2, there's a big twist. And it blew my mind so much that I went and I woke up my roommate who was in the other room, and I brought him out to watch the whole episode again, right?
What was that?
Because I can't ruin it. Actually, I totally can. It's like 7 years ago.
Yeah.
It's the one where his best friend tries to kill him. So he kills his best friend, right? And then his best friend comes back as a zombie. So they find out that they're all
Shane,
infected.
right?
Yeah. Blew my mind. So I lost it, just stared at the TV for a while, and then I went and woke my friend out to watch it
I
again.
think this is why they have the Talking Dead show.
Yeah.
Because, yeah.
Yeah, so that wasn't the smartest way to deal with it. I didn't have to wake him up from a dead sleep to do that, right? But it was still a good way to emotionally deal with that surprise, right? What's a bad way to deal with anger? We already talked about Falcon punching the TV and Infinity punching the TV and all kinds of punching the TV is a bad thing, right? So let's say you guys don't drive yet. That's the easiest way that I find anger.
Another way to actually do anger as a bad way is to pretty much become a supervillain.
Yeah, don't be a supervillain. Don't make a death ray, don't make a death machine. If there's death in front of it, don't make it. Don't kidnap people and hold them for ransom. Like, there's a lot of bad supervillain stuff that I would say don't do, right?
Especially Thanos thing.
Yeah, don't snap your fingers and kill half of everything, right? That's also a bad guy thing to do, right? So, one thing, people always think about if you're mad, it's like breaking things or yelling at somebody, right? The worst thing you can do if you're mad is hold it in. Okay? Because what's gonna happen? You're gonna get mad today and you're gonna hold it in, and you've got this much, right? And then you're gonna get mad tomorrow, and then you gotta pile that little bit of mad on top of this one, so now you have this much. And then you have this much. And then you have this much. And then your whole body is just filled with that all the time, right? And you're mad at school, and you're mad at somebody ruined Endgame for you, and you're mad at whatever it is, right? You've got all that stored in you. And then someone bumps into you in the hallway on accident, and you turn around, you start screaming out, you explode, right? Because that's what happens if you keep storing it in you, is you blow up. And that's with any emotion too, right? If you're feeling sad and you're like, I gotta be the cool kid and not cry. You just hold that down, that's gonna stack on there. Your body's not gonna tell the difference between if you're sad or if you're angry. It's just gonna blow up, right? So you need to deal with your emotions. And the best way to do that is to talk to people, right? And I want you guys to know, I know that you usually go to Chandler campus, but if you're ever like, man, I really, like, I know I see Ben and James like every week, so I want to talk to them about this because they're gonna know. You can call me.
Or me.
Like, that's fine. Like, we have volunteers all back here. We're all here to sit and talk with you because that's the best way to deal with things, right? And the other thing is there's some things that if you're looking at someone else's problem, you might think that doesn't matter. And in that same side, you might be looking at your problem and see someone else who has so much worse problems that you go, mine doesn't matter, and you throw it to the side. Your problem affects you. If it's this big, compared to someone who's got one that's this big, yours is just as important if it affects you the same way, right? So, someone who's super rich, and for their Sweet 16, they got a burgundy Mercedes instead of a burnt red. You guys ever seen those shows? And they scream. That's the same reaction as could be somebody who like just lost a parent, right? Somebody blames himself. That could be that same reaction, even though they're very different problems, right?
I don't care what color, it's a Mercedes.
So both of those people have to deal with that. Because this person is not dealing with anything, right? If they're upset about the color of their Mercedes, like a tire off that car would be as much as mine, right? Like my car. If someone stole their hubcap, they could buy my car. Right? It's a very different problem, but you have the same feeling. So don't let somebody else's view of the world change how you feel. Deal with that issue, right? Talk about it. Even if it comes out of your mouth, there are so many times when I say to people, this is gonna sound stupid, but I say it anyways, right? This is gonna sound stupid, but I am really mad that when I play my Marvel game on the phone, I need to win with Spider-Man, and I can't win with Spider-Man, and that is frustrating, right? I get upset at that. And all I need to do is have somebody listen to me, right? That, in all reality, that doesn't matter, even a little bit, right? That is literally the dumbest thing to be upset about, but that doesn't change the fact that I'm upset about it. So when you guys are feeling things like that, don't think they're gonna think I'm stupid. Because they're not, right? Especially in a church. Because people are gonna look at you and they're gonna say, let's get through it, right? That's what church is here for. So, we have to figure out our own don't forget that we're not alone, right? One thing that's becoming huge in the spotlight right now is mental health, right? And there's so many different ways that your brain can get sick. Bottling up emotions doesn't help it, right? But there's people who are literally go to school to change those things for you. So if you have something going on, and believe me, you are not alone. We have a very small campus, and I have probably hooked people up with counseling 5 or 6 times in a year, right? You're not alone. There's other people who are going through it. There's other people who have gotten through it and want to help you get through it. There's people that are feeling the same thing right now. And there's people who are trained to pinpoint how to help you, right? So don't think that because you feel a certain way that, oh, I'm just going to ignore it because so-and-so is going to think this and what people are going to look at me and know this. The only opinion that matters is God's opinion of you, and He loves you no matter what, right? Just in the same way that you wouldn't get upset at somebody because they went to the hospital because their appendix burst. Nobody should be getting upset at anybody because they have something going on in their brain. Because both of those are organs, right? And both can get sick. So, if you are having trouble dealing with your emotions, talk to somebody. Talk to your mom or dad. Talk to your siblings. My best conversations were in the middle of the night when I was supposed to be asleep, talking to my brothers, right? I mean, we played a lot of Pokemon cards too, don't get me wrong, but like those conversations are really what get you through stuff. So don't ever think that something is unimportant and doesn't need to be brought up, because everything is important, right? If it's affecting you, it's important. Talk about it. Get through it. Pinpoint, why do you feel that way? Are you really upset at your game? Or are you upset at something that's happening at school? Right? Are you upset that someone refuses to talk to you and you just want to be their friend? Are you frustrated that you're in school and you just cannot get math because I feel you, right? I took one math class in college, that was it. They were like, you can take this one. I was like, nah, dude, I'm out. Right? There's always something past it.
How do you prove you want to parallel?
They're right there, you can see, like that's a whole different conversation, right? So, I want you guys to know that in order to come into your sequel, in order to grow and be successful, because that's our goal with this, right? We want to look at what's coming next and how are we going to make it a good sequel, right? We are the main character, right? If Harry Potter didn't learn a single new spell the whole time he was in school, which I think after year 2, I don't think he did, because he just knew Expelliarmus. That was it. That's all he used ever.
That's all you needed to know.
Right? If you read the books, he does. He learns a lot of them, right? If he just was like, oh, I'm going to fix everything with a little floating spell. Like, if that's all he did, that story would be awful, right? It's like, oh, here's the bad guy. I made him float. That would be a good story.
That's more like Stephen King.
Wingardium Leviosa.
We're not going to talk about it right now.
Okay.
It's horrifying. Horrifying. Okay? So, the reason that Harry does so well in books is because he takes the time to learn and be better, right? And grow. But he doesn't just grow mentally, he also grows emotionally, right? He grows in friendships, he gets new relationships with people, forms strong bonds, right? He goes through stages of grief. He does all this stuff, and as a character, he develops. He's not the same person in book 3 as he is in book 7.
Yeah.
That's how you want to be in your life, right? Because if you're the same person 10 years from now, it's because of your decisions, right? I know a lot of people who have not developed any since high school. And I've almost been out for 10 years. So in 10 years, they've done nothing. And that's no one's choice but their own. So when you look at something, you say, this is gonna be hard, I'm not gonna do it. What you're saying is, I'm not gonna move forward, right? So as we're looking at our sequel, we get to choose what it looks like. We get to choose if we're gonna have a successful sequel or not. So make those decisions, grow emotionally, right? I think this one might be the most important part of the series because it's most of the time the hardest thing to deal with. We're getting better about society being like, guys have emotions, but it's still like, it's more natural for a girl to show emotions. In society, people don't blink at if a girl cries during a movie. If a guy cries during a movie though, it's the end of the world, right? So don't let society define those things. Feel your emotions, own them, learn them, talk to people about them. We good? You guys got any prayer requests? You guys want to do happy crappies? Because still got like 10 minutes.
Sure.
All right.
But not.
Happy crappies. So if you can talk about something good that happened during your week or is like coming up or something bad. So happy obviously is something good and crappy is something bad.
All my friends went to the pool yesterday, Friday before we went, so they left even once we got there, then I was by myself.
Oh. So that was a crappy. That was a barely miss though. I have a happy that you're signed up for camp.
Sweet.
Any other one? You got one?
Yeah, I start 8th grade in a couple weeks.
Solid.
You start or you graduate 8th grade?
I start 8th grade.
They have a really short summer.
Boy,
Yeah,
you're young.
Summer's
I
over
get
already.
off May 23rd and go back July 17th. I only got a
So this
month.
isn't all year round school?
Yeah, I
Yes,
go
it
here.
does.
I go here.
Any other happy crappies?
My happy is I got to work on my floor yesterday, but my crappy is I bent my saw blade, so.
What are you doing on your floor? You don't mind
Yeah.
Working on it?
Oh, what are you working on?
Huh?
Putting stuff down, or?
Yeah, putting down.
You wanna come do mine?
And it's really hard to like cut things because I gotta draw on the back of the board, right? Because I can't draw on the front of the board. And so it's really difficult. I actually accidentally, sort of, I drew a reverse image and so I cut out the wrong side of the board. And so I went to go, I'm like, I'd have to flip it over to install it, which, is not.
And the bottom isn't.
Yeah, the bottom of it's supposed to be, facing out.
Perfect.
So I've ruined 3 boards like that.
Put a piece of paper over it, draw it, and then flip the paper over and then draw it on the paper.
Maybe, yeah.
Do a plaster cast.
Plaster cast.
That would be so much extra work.
Yeah.
3D print.
But, I have 2 days.
Yeah.
But, I just got a new chair and I just got a new bike.
Solid. Don't mix the two. Don't play with your bike on the trampoline. That's a dangerous idea.
I've done it, it's fun, it is
I
fun.
have definitely.
Dangerous?
It is
Maybe
dangerous
never
and
done
fun.
that.
I've known
Bounce
someone
on
that
the
did
trampoline with
it.
your bike.
Ended up with a broken arm, but that's beyond me.
All right. Well, let's pray it out, and then I'll steal the switch back in here. I'm gonna wreck somebody in Super Smash. So.
Sure.
God, I just want to thank you that you created us as emotional beings. And I want to ask that you help us to not go over the top with our emotions. That we don't get overly scared and overly angry and just explode, but that we are comfortable reaching out to others and talking about what we're feeling, and that we can get through the tough times, and that we can come out stronger on the other side. Pray this in your name. Amen. Don't forget to do your Mother's Day card or letter. Yeah.
Oh, yeah, perfect time to do that. I'll pull it up.
Here, Campbell, do yours really quick as your mom's coming in.